Hello, welcome to another Sonic Lab. Today we're looking at the Moog Sub Phatty. This is the latest synthesizer from Moog. It's a fully analog monophonic synthesizer in the true sense of the word, as Moog are totally famous for making. So first thing I noticed when I got this out of the box was how well built it is. It's a massive chunky piece of metal, feels really solid. It's got that same sort of scooped back vibe as the little Phatty and the Stage, and it just oozes build quality. There's no wobbly knobs or sort of anything feels flimsy about it. It just feels like a solidly built piece of equipment made of heavy duty metal and components, which I like. So let's take a look at the front panel. So starting off, we've actually got a 2-octave keyboard, nice feel to it, velocity sensitive, no aftertouch, mind you, which is a bit of a disappointment really, because a lot of synths in this price range are coming with aftertouch, and it gives you extra expressivity. Mod and pitch wheel, nicely done. Then we've got the presets buttons. We've got basically 4 banks of 4, giving us 16 presets that can be stored in the unit. These also double up as mode switches. You can access some of the deeper functions of synthesis under the hood with various different button configurations. Start here, we've got pitch, fine tune and glide, octave switch, LFO rate, multi-wave. You can also use the filter envelope as an LFO wave and change the rate. That's pretty cool. Pitch amount, filter amount, wave amount, and a switch for oscillator 2. 2 oscillators, full range, 16 to 2 feet. You can hard sync 1 to 2, and then you've got a plus and minus 7 semitone range on the second oscillator. Just a quick note about those oscillators, they are very stable. It takes about 30 seconds from switch on to reach absolute pitch stability. And also the tracking across the entire range of the keyboard is also very stable. This is something that Moog have been working on and wanted me to make sure that I mentioned, because they're obviously very proud of the stability that they've managed to achieve with what essentially are analog oscillators. The waves continually variable from triangle through saw, through pulse, through square and then pulse on both waves. You can modulate this amount as well, which is really nice. So we do get pulse width modulation. You'll be pleased to know. Well, I'm pleased to know because I love it. Mixer section, oscillator 1, sub oscillator, which is a -1 octave square wave. Oscillator 2, then we've got a dedicated knob for blending white noise into the mix. Then we've got the classic filter, which is a nicely calibrated big filter knob, 24 dB Moog 4-pole ladder filter. Resonance, and then envelope amount, keyboard amount, and this multi-drive circuit, which gives us these 2 drive circuits, which allows us to take it from being sort of quite tame to right up and being sort of really squally and squeaky, which brings out the resonance for the feature. Also really good if you've got some sync going on, like I did at the beginning of the show. Attack decay sustain release oscillator envelope for filter, and also the same for amplitude, headphone output, dedicated separate output, and a master output. Round the side, we've got mono output and an external input, plus filter CV, pitch CV, volume CV, and keyboard gate control inputs. MIDI I/O and a USB port. This actually does come with an editor, so you can control a lot of these functions via MIDI, and also means you can store patches, which obviously means you can enhance the initial 16 patches that you've got there and just go to your heart's content. On the back we've got this the lovely Moog note, but not a big Moog word like on some of the other keyboards. So we'll start off listening to the basic building blocks. Listen to an oscillator. This is a triangle wave, plenty of sub there, and I'll bring it round into a sawtooth. Then into square wave, and then into pulse. You'll be pleased to know that the actual wave variation is modulatable source. So if we go here, you can just listen. Sounds really nice. We can dial that in with a wave amount, put it in the pitch wheel. Modulate that with the different waves here. Also the envelope, which is kind of handy. Although one thing I did miss was having an actual sine wave on the LFO, because certainly for waves, when you get that really nice kind of gradual slow thing, triangle's just a bit pointy. by its very nature, but it's only a small gripe. Listen to the sub oscillator. This is an octave below oscillator 1 and it's a square wave. So if we come back to oscillator 1, and now we bring the filter into play, it's just a sweep. You can hear it's got that characteristic Moog sound, but it's perhaps not quite as driven as, say, the Minotaur. I thought the Minotaur was just a little bit too fuzzy from the get-go. But the thing is, what's so cool about this is we've got individual drive levels on each of the oscillators, sub-oscillator and noise. If you notice, it goes up to 12. And this means that if up to about the midday slot, we've got a clean feed into the filter. These are all pre-filter input gains. So this is a sawtooth, clean. Now if I drive it, I'll put it up to 12 because that means maximum amount of drive into the filter. You can hear the clipping starts to come in. Add a bit of resonance. You can hear the difference. So what's quite cool about that is you've got individual control over the drive pre-filter, and there's also the multi-drive which is post-filter. And this is an OTA or operational transconductance amplifier post-filter as a drive circuit. And just a little bit of it. Starts to bring that Moog smudge as we start to bring it up. But where it really starts to play is when you start to bring the resonance in and it's got something to work against. That's full, half. That's... Also works really nicely if you're just going to take the resonance out, maybe do some hard sync on oscillator 2. Bring the drive. So you get like quite a lot of harmonics and distortion in varying degrees depending on what you're doing with it. But it's not just for sync and resonance that it really brings it out. It also does really nice things with the wave as well. Let's take a listen. So I've got a single oscillator somewhere between sawtooth and square, sub oscillator about there, and then oscillator 2 a couple of octaves above. Now what I'm doing is I'm routing the wave amount of oscillator 1 and 2 to the filter envelope, and I'll bring that in with the mod wheel. And that's already sounding pretty good. I start to bring a little bit of multi-drive in. Starts to really break up. I can go crazy. Bring that down an octave. So again, tons of character and bags of sort of extra energy and vibe coming just off a single knob, the multi-drive, very useful. While we're on the subject of the filter, you probably want to know if it can be played, and yes it can. So I'll take these oscillators down and bring up the resonance. Keyboard amount at about 5. So yes, I can play the filter, and also if I start to put the drive in, it starts to go a bit more of a sort of square wave sort of tone, so we can use the multi-drive again. So what we haven't touched on are the shift functions. There's quite a lot of stuff hidden underneath the hood of the synth. To activate shift mode, I press bank 4 and activate panel. That goes into shift mode, and this now opens up the various different aspects of the synthesizer's kind of hidden features. For instance, we've got a sound here. What we could do by pressing the hard sync button means that the two oscillators will start at the same point each time. Without them, you get a slightly drifting attack. With this, it's absolutely bang on. There are a lot of other features which require different button configuration pushes. For instance, entering shift mode again and pressing bank button 2 and button 1 gives me filter slope cutoff possibilities. Or these two will give me waveform modulation destinations, and I can press, this will be oscillator 1, oscillator 2, oscillator 1 and 2. So generally these keys are used as switches. There are actually quite a lot of shift functions in the synthesizer, and they're all listed in the manual here with the various different button configurations. Nice to see a hard copy, by the way. But to be honest, I found that when I was in sort of sound discovery mode, I found it a bit frustrating to have to keep getting to the manual, and I couldn't honestly remember many of the configurations because there are quite a lot of them. Fortunately though, there is a librarian, sub-Phatty editor I suppose. I've got this, it's a beta version at the moment, so it may well not be exactly what you're looking at, but essentially it gives you access to all those extra functions, and it also allows you to store and save and manage patches as a librarian as well. So that gives you a lot of extra functionality, and you can store all the patches that you might come up with on the synthesizer. So we get replication of the front panel, if I tweak the knobs on the front panel, it's all communicating via MIDI. So basically we've got digital control of analog synthesis. So again, if I come out of shift mode and press, then I can activate various buttons and what have you. And what you can do, these are all the shifted functions. So we've got things like being able to route the wave mod destillation to oscillator 1, oscillator 2, 1 and 2, LFO range, low, mid and high for audio rate modulation, filter poles, which is pretty cool. So for instance, if we've got a filter here, I'm in 4-pole filter here, a lot of resonance. Take it down to a 3-pole, 2-pole, 1-pole. You can really hear the difference between the kind of characteristic of the resonance there. So you get almost 4 flavoured filters rather than actual multi-mode filter. You've got multi-pole filter. And probably the shift functions are where the real detail is. So for instance, if I've got, here's another really cool one. I've got 2 oscillators, pretty much near as damn it synced up. I want to detune them slightly. I happen to like that. But when I play at the keyboard, the beat frequency changes, and I can fix that. If I go down to oscillator 2 beat frequency, I've got that speed. Now I play further up the keyboard. So I've got the same beat frequency up and down the keyboard. Another little touch. I mean, this synth is full of nice little touches in the shift mode. Here are some more. This patch has got an interesting kind of like sequence type feel to it. And what's actually happening here is we're using the envelope repeat feature, which is a shift function on the filter. So if I come back out to my synth and I change the speed of the release, so that makes it worth kind of pretty much like another LFO, and that's on both envelopes as well. There's also velocity sensitivity and some other stuff in the envelopes that's worth looking at. In this patch, I've got velocity to amount, but on both the filter and the amplitude envelope, but both at full. So that means I can play it velocity sensitive over the keyboard. While on the subject of envelopes, obviously I want to know whether they're snappy and what have you. So let's take a look at these. So what I'm going to do is dial in a whole load of pitch amount, bring that on the wheel. That's a lot of pitch. So let's go for some sort of a zappy kind of sound, bass drum. And if we hit the repeat on the envelope as well, we can do a whole lot of other stuff. So you get sound effects, you get percussion. The filters, the envelopes are perfectly capable of very fast, whippy kind of stuff. So while we're on the subject of the editor, quickly, clicking here shows us the librarian features. These represent the 16 presets we can load and get and send. It's going to come with a whole bunch of presets. There aren't any in there at the moment, but as I said, this is an early version. It's not the final release, so those are the sort of things that are going to be coming along shortly. So there we have it, the Moog sub-Phatty. It is a comprehensive analog monosynth. It does have extra features and more, if you need more than the Slim Phatty and the Minotaur, such as a noise source, extra oscillators, and that lot more modulation and some of those little tricksy things that you can do with the shift functions, then this actually seems to be quite a lot of synthesizer for the money. I mean, of course, as we know, you do pay a premium for the Moog brand, but you know, they make pretty outstanding synthesizers, and there is a sound to them that you just can't get anywhere else. Add to that the multi-drive, which brings all this extra flavor and character, and I particularly like the multi-pole filter as well. That gives us a lot to play with. So about the price, 849, 850 quid, about $1,000. These are street prices, euros will scroll below. You know, it is a premium price for a premium synth, but it feels like a very solidly built piece of equipment and something that probably would last you a lifetime, I think. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to say. The build quality is great. The only limitations I can think of, on a synth with so many routing possibilities, I would like to have seen aftertouch, because that's what you're getting in a lot of other synths that have these kind of facilities, albeit at a slightly cheaper price point, and give you that extra bit of expression. But on the whole, I think for that Moog sound, if you can't quite stretch to one of the top of the range, this is going to get you an awful lot of Moog for that money.